In this podcast, we are sitting down with Rachel Artise. She is the owner of 2 UPS stores. She helped introduce the whole printing to UPS in general and their stores. So awesome content talking about that, but most importantly, talking about self-awareness and leadership. 2 huge keys that I think that are invaluable to know and perfect as an entrepreneur, no matter what level you're at. She has a very unique way of going about it and really just making people feel like they're valued and super important, even at a low team member level. So guys, if you have any questions about management styles, whatever, great person to listen to. 19 years of experience with management. We are taking you to Rachel Artise. Let's go. Alrighty, Rachel, haven't seen you for a little while. How have you been?
Oh, I've been good. Busy, as always.
Yeah. What are some things that you've been up to the past, what is it, been like 2 weeks since we met?
Well, it feels like longer, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
I've just been traveling a lot.
Okay.
I've got some family in Michigan that hasn't had great health, so doing some traveling to help with family, because that is why we do what we do.
Exactly.
And, really, just trying to make sure that the businesses are where I need them to be, and kind of making sure that I have the space and capacity to expand when I'm ready.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about those businesses. So people who might be watching or listening who don't know who you are, kind of tell them a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Well, my name is Rachel Artise. I'm originally from Metro Detroit, Michigan, and I own 2 UPS stores currently. Hope to own more. And honestly, if you ask me what I do, I am building an empire of businesses that operate based off of love, respect, and Gen Shy. And I believe I can be successful in doing that. And right now, my businesses are exclusive to UPS stores, but I think it translates to any business out there.
Gotcha. So you have 2 UPS stores going on 3. Kind of walk us back in the beginning stages of when you started. Like like what kind of personality, what were you doing? What were you looking to do with your life? Just like real basic, I don't even know how to put it, but yeah, like how you started out.
How I started out. Well, I, had a history of getting jobs and becoming a leader.
Okay.
So when I moved to Erie, Pennsylvania, with my husband, he, somebody knew somebody who offered me a job at a UPS store.
Okay.
So I took the job, and my intention was to just make it a part-time job to get me through college, because that was really like what I was trying to do, is the traditional path of, going to a university and, learning more about business and leadership and stuff. But I never, ever thought it was going to translate into owning a business.
Gotcha. What were you going to school for?
Just like a business admin kind of degree.
Just kind of that basic college degree. And obviously you didn't think that it was. So what were you kind of hoping to do with the degree if you didn't see yourself in business? Just use it to help you get a better job?
Yeah, just use a degree to make more money, really, like we, most of us end up doing. So the goal is to just not, I grew up very underprivileged.
Okay.
So my goal was to just not be there anymore.
Gotcha. Just trying to break that chain of childhood to where you're at now. You wanted something new, but you didn't know you wanted to own a business. Do you remember what it was like when you realized, hey, I'm going to own this UPS store and I'm going to do this?
Yeah. So I didn't purchase the UPS store that I was working at. But I just knew that like leadership was my calling, and operating the business, just almost seemed to come naturally. I mean, I enjoyed it, you know what I mean? So when you kind of have that trifecta of like, oh, I love what I do. I, have an opportunity to kind of expand, and I love, teaching people how to do this and leading them to do greater things with their lives. You're like, yeah, why not? And when you have the support, like I had a great support system at the time.
Now, something that really is interesting with your story is how you went from not wanting a business, not thinking you'd want a business, to wanting a business and going into the UPS stores. What I always find interesting with stuff like that is a lot of people talk about follow your passion, do what you're passionate about. What made you want to grab up a UPS store rather than doing something around something you were like really passionate, whether it was like art or singing or whatever it is?
Mm-hmm.
What made you go into like a franchise model?
I mean, I think, the incentive was that I was already in the industry.
Okay.
And I already understood it. So I felt quite comfortable, making that migration. And, there's a ton of sacrifice and investing that goes into purchasing a business, especially the businesses I buy are already existing. So I just felt like the network was supportive, and that it was something that I already knew I was good at. But I think as we grow, I'm always growing. And I think as I've grown, I feel like I've followed like a little path of breadcrumbs, if you will.
Gotcha.
And that those breadcrumbs kind of are each clues as to something that I'm really good at. If you asked me 10 years ago what I'm passionate about, I would have said, oh, I love live music, I'm not a musician. I enjoy live music. But when I look at what I truly enjoy doing as a career path, that's a whole different kind of thing. And it all boils down to leadership and connecting with people and doing stuff like that.
So it almost seems like it doesn't matter what business you ran, you just really enjoyed the leadership aspect of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha.
It's it's almost like mentoring, right? That's how I feel about leadership. And most of my life, I felt like I was always mentoring people. I was mentoring my friends. I was mentoring my family. And so now I just mentor my employees and other entrepreneurs and other people in my industry.
Now, that's really cool that you know that about yourself, because I think a lot of people have a hard time, like, what am I good at? What am I called to do? What are my skill sets? When did you realize that leadership is what you're good at?
Well, I'm going to be 34 this week.
Okay. Well, early happy birthday.
So thank you. I would say probably in my late 20s.
Okay.
And I don't know why it never clicked. It just didn't. And it didn't seem, the only way to describe it is like a superpower, right?
Yeah.
And some people, when you watch like X-Men or Superman or Batman or whatever, each of them have a superpower, but it just seems totally normal to them. And so I feel like, I've kind of floated through life with this, like, what's considered to be my superpower, my extraordinary gift is kind of what I like to call it. And it just seems easy to me. And then when I realized that it wasn't easy for everybody,
Gotcha.
Especially when I try to help mentor people into leadership that's not their gift. I was like, oh, wait, like, this is my thing. It's not everybody's. So.
Gotcha. So it was just kind of that realization, like, hey, some people really are bad at this.
Yeah. Or some people are really good at other things. My most favorite talk I've ever given was to a group of, I want to say they were third graders.
Okay.
And literally I was like, okay, they wanted me to come in and, talk about being an entrepreneur and tell kids how they could be entrepreneurs too. And that's just not my style.
Okay.
So I went in and I said, listen, we all have extraordinary gifts, and to me, they're superpowers. And we kind of talked just like you and I talked. And I asked them what their superpowers would be if it was based on something that they're extremely good at right now. And the answers were just remarkable. We had everything from, loving my parents to baking to basketball, and when they said, one of the kids said basketball, and I was like, that is a true superpower to me, right? If you watched me try to dribble, it's atrocious. So to just see these little kids get it was like, dang, like, what are we doing so wrong that it takes us so long to acknowledge what other people could see as the obvious.
And I think that it might even be easier for kids. Like, there has to be something in our growing up process where it switches. Because, yeah, you're right. You ask a kid, what are you good at? And they'll list like 5 things that they feel really confident about. But then once you get older, you kind of fall into this routine of where I don't know what I'm good at. You just kind of feel average. But like you said, there is that one thing everybody has. Now, your thing is leadership. Do you think that's a skill set that's able to be taught, or do you think it is something that is born with a person?
I think with with enough work, you could learn anything,
Okay.
right? I could probably learn to be a basketball player if I really put the effort into it. But I think that some people are just naturally, they just have something about them that naturally attracts other people to confide in them, and you either go into leadership or you become a therapist. And, so I do think that there's some instinctual stuff that comes into play when it comes to leadership. And the comfortable, the ability to be comfortable in having conversations, even when they're not easy conversations to have. And I don't think that everybody is cut out to do that. There's tons of people in leadership that probably shouldn't be. And it, some people tend to be too nice where they don't want to have difficult conversations. And other people are like, oh, I'm going to bring the hammer and, force my staff to do things that that I need them to do. And there has to be like that in between, the sweet spot of leadership.
Exactly. Now, you brought up a point that really struck home for me, is having difficult conversations with people. Now, that's something that I hate confrontation. If I can avoid it, I will, or I'll make someone else do it. So maybe it just comes so naturally for you, but how do you get into like the state before you go into a conversation that's going to be awkward?
Yeah, I mean, in leadership, you have to know you're going to always have those difficult conversations. I truly believed in my core about operating with love, respect, and Gen Shy. And the word Gen Shy it means talking to people, other people, and yourself without making them feel small.
Okay.
Right. So if you've ever, right, I was like, oh, that's my word. But if you've ever been in a conversation where someone has talked to you and it has made you feel small, that is the opposite of what I'm trying to do. So difficult conversations don't tend to be as difficult for me because I come in knowing like, okay, I care about the individual that I'm going to talk to. I want them to know that, I respect the conversation and I honor, both of our differences in the conversation. And, if the goal is growth for us as individuals, and if it's about the business, if the goal is the same, then the conversation's not that difficult. And even if the goal isn't the same, and we have differences, and sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't, but it doesn't have to be a conflict, because it just has to be a conversation.
Yeah, it seems as if you go into it with the right intentions, the right results are going to come out of it.
That's right. And I used to get in this tizzy of telling myself a story before a difficult conversation about what that other person was thinking, or, you know what I mean? Where you're like,
I do that all the time.
Yeah,
What are they going to say when I say this?
Exactly. And you want to map out like every possible
conversation.
Yeah. And it's just impossible. That's not, but the minute I stopped telling myself someone else's story, and I just kind of embraced my side of the conversation and knew where I wanted to go with it did get easier.
Well, now how do you ever feel like there's a fine balance between that and having the authority that you have as like an owner or a boss? Because I feel like some people listening, or even myself a little bit, could be like, well, if I'm always trying to like, obviously you should show them respect, but how do you keep that balance of not just sounding like you're on the same level or your peers, but you are in charge?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I've had like the beauty in my industry of migrating from an employee, a general associate, to a manager, to an owner. And so I get how those conversations can sound intimidating, and I don't know. I guess I tend to not be as aware of like any level of superiority.
Okay.
I don't know if that's a good way to describe it, but I almost do consider myself somewhat of an equal. Obviously, I have an investment in the business, right? And whenever, especially if we're referencing talking to a team member of mine, like the goal is for the team, and that was a big shift in my mindset as an entrepreneur. The goal was growth for the business, right?
Exactly.
And once I shifted from growth of the business to growth of the team, it was a game changer. And it was a different way that I started talking to people when it came to my coworkers. When you own a business, There's the investment, right? There's a lot of risk involved. I have 2 children, so there's a lot of my time that's pulled from them, and you can fall into these moments of desperation where you know it's all or nothing, and your staff doesn't understand that sometimes, but it doesn't have to come off as like you're having all of these problems and your staff needs to fix it. The problem when businesses aren't doing well is that the team isn't performing well. And so if you always operate with the idea of, is this what's best for the team? Usually your outcome is going to be a positive one.
And how have you handled situations where a certain team member isn't good for the team? You're like letting someone go.
Toxic team members.
Yes.
Bum, bum, bum. Yeah. So again, like the question is this what's best for the team? I always consider what's going on in people's lives. I employ real humans, living, breathing, real people. And so, we all struggle in life. I've been driving back and forth to U of M because my grandma was super sick the past few weeks, and so my team considers that when it comes to my life, and I consider those things when it comes to theirs. However, I think I'm in the retail industry, and not everybody is cut out for retail. If you don't like people, you shouldn't be in retail. And sometimes people come to me and they're great with people, and then something shifts in their mindset or shifts in their life, and they just don't enjoy what they do anymore. And I've been known to help my staff find other positions for other companies. But toxic team members, like, that's all it takes is one person, and they can completely poison the well, right? It's like, how much poison does it take to poison a well? Not
a lot.
Just a little. And so, if you always think about what's best for the team, you're going to catch those moments, and the team will catch it too.
For sure.
But I've been there. It's a challenge.
Now, with all of your years of management experience, have you ever run into a team member who's toxic but really good at their job?
Oh, yeah.
And how do you, like, because I feel like a lot, like in my mind, it would be still you have to cut them out, because if, like you're saying, if you're not good for the team, you're not good, period.
Yeah.
But I feel like a lot of business owners who don't get that can have a hard time seeing, well, sales are up when they're here, or they're really good when a customer walks in. They just really suck when it comes to working with other team members.
Yeah.
What's kind of your philosophy on that?
I think most people who own businesses hate hiring and firing. It's probably one of the biggest challenges in business. And I've been there where you justify it and you're like, oh, you know what? Their numbers are great. They're doing great. But, it's the experience that they're giving. I was just speaking with a friend and was told, who is your competition when you own a retail business? And they said, everybody. Every experience that a person, when they're shopping anywhere, any experience they encounter, that is your competition. So if you go to Walmart and then you come to my store, you're going to be like, wow. Hopefully you're going to say the UPS store was awesome and Walmart was so difficult. And so it's setting a standard across the board. And so whether your customer had a good experience before you or a better experience after you, that is the scale, right?
Yeah.
And so when you have a toxic employee, even if their numbers are good, the experience that they're providing not only to their individual customers that they're helping, but to your staff members is a game changer. And they may be performing well, but you probably will see, if you look at the numbers really well, that the other staff is suffering and underperforming because of that toxicity.
No, that's actually really good. I didn't think of it that way, because they might be doing well, but what does that cost? Like, 5 other people could be thriving if this one person's gone.
That's right.
And then you have to have those tough conversations and help them. And then it seems like if you're going into it with this attitude of, hey, that person who is a complete jerk to everybody is still a human. Let's see if we can work this out with them. If we can keep them on the team, great. If not, let's help them relocate to a different career.
That's right.
Seems pretty nonsensical.
to me it's like common sense,
Yeah.
but it's not always common practice, right? So and sometimes, you get comfortable in what you're doing in your career, and you forget to take that like eagle
Yeah.
eye view of how the company actually looks outside of the numbers. So, there are times I walk into my stores and I don't know how to describe it, but you almost feel like what the weight of the air is when you walk in your business. And I've been known to like take my nephew. He's 11, and I've taken him to both of my locations,
Yeah.
kind of like a work study thing. And he was like, you know what? I like the other store better. And I'm like, really? Why? He's like, it felt more like a family.
Huh.
And I was like, interesting. And I agreed with him, but I was like, you know what? He gets it, right? And our it's not just because he worked in there for a few hours with me. It's more because he saw it, he
Yeah.
felt it, and our customers feel it, and our employees feel it. So it's the
No.
environment. It has to be
Exactly.
right.
And those kids, they are able to catch on to things quickly like that.
They're so much smarter than we are.
That goes back to your point. Like when you ask them, what are you good at? They already know. And then there's somewhere along the line where we lose that ability to have that self-awareness of like,
Yeah.
what am I good at? What can I do?
Do you feel like that comes from like outside influence?
I think it probably does as you grow up trying to not appease, but look good in front of multiple people. You can a lot of the time feel like what you're good at isn't as good as you think it is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I mean, growing up, you have your parents who are, hopefully you have your parents who are like cheering you on, like, hey, you're really good at that. And you should have parents that are coaching you. But then as you get older, you get, those outside influences that are like, am I really this good? And then people can be super cruel and like tear you down on things that you're good at just because they feel insecure about not being good at it.
True.
So I just think a lot of it just has to do with just life in general as you get older and you get more self-conscious about who you are.
Yeah. It's interesting because there's so many resources now, or so many more resources now than when I was a kid. So my sister said she has, like, I've read the Strength Finders book. I don't know if you've ever read that. It like you take this test and it tells you like really what your strengths are, and it encourages you to really laser focus on those strengths as opposed to building up, what you're not great at.
Yeah.
And they're teaching that in some of the schools now, where they're like, hey, instead of like, hey, you need to pull up your science grade, they're like, hey, kid, you're really amazing at math. Like, that is a strength of yours. Let's keep nourishing that and growing it. And
Exactly.
it's beautiful that our world is starting to kind of comprehend that you don't have to be good at everything, but if you can find that one thing.
Exactly. And I think that's a lot of the stuff that I've learned as far as just like child development is so huge.
Yeah.
Is not just pushing them through a system of like, hey, get these grades, do these things, be good at, be well-rounded in everything, but really try and, like you're saying, find what you're good at and just push those kids to be the best that they can be in those areas.
For sure.
But now kind of talking a little bit more about just you growing the UPS store, apart from focusing on the team, growing that, what are some other things you think contributed to being able to own 2 and now almost 3 stores?
Resilience. I mean, I think that like my ability to kind of overcome difficult situations is really what makes me good at what I do. I think, that I have my strengths and I definitely know how to channel those when it comes to the business and the industry and growing, it as an empire. I don't just want one business that I work in for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I want multiples that I employ people to work in for the rest of their lives, and one day I'll sell my businesses, and I hope to sell them to people that I employ because, they're the most deserving, right?
That'd be really cool.
So I don't know if that answered your question.
No, it does. I mean, and it's more of just like a segue into talking about how, like, just kind of what you're doing with your business. Now, we talked last time about how you were kind of leading the charge as far as getting UPS stores to start printing.
Yeah.
Talk about that a little bit and what that kind of journey was to get that set up in UPS stores.
Yeah. So I mean, if this was like a button pushing job where I did the same thing all day, I probably wouldn't have bought into it as an industry.
Okay.
Even if it was just limited to shipping, I probably would have eventually gotten bored. But I'm fortunate enough to be a part of a franchise that, understands business when it comes to evolution.
Mm-hmm.
And, as entrepreneurs, we know like evolve or die. We're in
Yeah.
a time where things change so quickly with technology and automation and stuff. So the shipping industry was kind of, it was doing all right. But with Amazon coming up and all of that stuff, our retail centers kind of started seeing a dwindling effect on the shipping industry. And I was kind of getting bored. So I had somebody that I know in the network that was like, hey, we've got these copy machines, and I was just managing a store at that time. I say just managing, but I was killing it and I was doing a really great job. And they were like, oh, let's put these things to work out here and see if we can grow copies. And then
Yeah.
copies kind of grew into business cards, and business cards grew into banners, and then it was like, oh wow, like we're really like becoming a print shop,
Yeah.
and it really did kind of evolve. And I want to say that was 9-10 years ago, and nobody was printing in UPS stores then.
Yeah.
So now if you watch most of our UPS store commercials, they're pushing print. And for me, that was a great connection because I love working with other entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
So once you offer services that pertain specifically to business owners, you get to connect with them more.
Exactly.
And it definitely kind of expanded my horizon, for what we were doing. I mean, there's no limitations when it comes to print, but more importantly, who my clients and my preferred demographic was.
Now, as far as print goes, how do you, and maybe this is more like a corporate question, but I'm going to ask anyways, how do you get the business steadily coming in for print when there are online options like Vistaprint and others kind of things like that?
Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be other online options.
Mm-hmm.
For us, being able to offer a lot of services on demand is key. We're fortunate enough to be sitting here in Erie, Pennsylvania, where we have a community that really does support the growth of entrepreneurs,
Mm-hmm.
especially women entrepreneurs. So I have a really good circle of people that, believe in supporting other businesses and shopping local. And, we offer a really great service.
Yeah.
Our team gives you a really great experience. We have graphic designers on team.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
So, sometimes Vistaprint's the best option for some of our clients because they want to be able to, stay at home and get the design done, and they don't really care to have anything specifically branded or
Yeah.
copywritten or anything like that. But, for people that we can help, that want that one-on-one connection, and who want, the ability to recall files, and alter them whenever they'd like, we offer a great service.
Now, and something you said there, and you said a community of people who want to shop local and help other entrepreneurs. Talk about, because I've always believed that even if it's a franchise business, it's still owned by a local person. So by shopping there, you're still shopping local.
Mm-hmm.
Do you agree? How do you feel like? Do you feel like even though it's a franchise, it's still local?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
it depends. I guess depending on the franchise, it may be
Yeah.
owned by someone who's local. I own UPS stores down in Pittsburgh, so maybe they wouldn't consider me local down there.
Mm-hmm.
But it's owned by a real live individual who's operating it and running it, and doing all of those things. So
Yeah.
to me, I agree. You know what I mean? I also agree in keeping businesses open in our community. So,
Mm-hmm.
not that I don't shop on Amazon, but I truly believe like I would like Best Buy to stay open in our community.
Yeah.
So when I need something, I try to keep it shopping, at physical locations, in my community.
Yeah, because the reason why I brought that up is I feel like a lot of people don't look at franchises as local businesses.
Yeah.
And the switch kind of flipped for me is because I would go to this Subway downtown all the time, and then I was like, well, maybe I should be going to a local restaurant
Mm-hmm.
and supporting that. And then I realized once I got to know the owners that they're local people who are just trying to make a living through a franchise model.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of times that can be lost as terms of like you're actually supporting someone. I mean, obviously, like you said, know who you're supporting because
Mm-hmm.
it could be someone who's remotely running it or
Right.
moved in from a different area that's not actually local, but
Right.
as long as the owners are local, you're still shopping local.
Yeah, I think, I completely agree. I think, that's the curse of the franchisee, right?
Yeah.
Is we have to kind of educate our communities that, hey, like, we live here and we own the business here. And then, people will authentically, hopefully, want to use us. But again, like I said, I've kind of expanded my horizon beyond that now, because it's like, I think watching my kids cry when they close down all the Toys R Us's across the nation, I was like, whoa, wait, this is a direct result of shopping online.
Mm-hmm.
The storefronts are just no longer needed.
Exactly.
So my goal is, A, to shop local when I can, and B, to shop physically local when I can, so that our community can continue to thrive.
Now, I want to kind of go back a little bit to when you talked about that switch of growth for a business and growing a team.
Mm-hmm.
How did you, and maybe it was just natural for you, but how did you work along the lines of not like stressing out
Mm-hmm.
that like you're not worried about growth
Mm-hmm.
rather than the team?
Oh, like not shoving it down their throats. Like,
Yeah,
I need
yeah,
to
yeah,
grow.
yeah.
I need to pay my bills.
How did you fight those urges?
I didn't at first.
Okay.
And then I realized that it turned me into that. Remember, we were talking toxic team members.
Mm-hmm.
There's probably no greater toxic team member than a hungry entrepreneur whose team is underperforming, right?
Yeah.
So I saw myself become somebody that I didn't admire.
Okay. Yeah.
So it was like, okay, how can we turn this around? And at that point, I was working in my business every day. So they all had to deal with me. And I apologize to anybody I employed in 2014 to 15. But I had a lot of personal stuff going on in my time,
Mm-hmm.
that point in my life. The same year we bought a business, we moved my father out here for cancer treatment. My husband moved with him to Cleveland and was caring for him. So our whole household was in turmoil. So I was not only, stressed out about my personal life, but the business needed to grow, And so I found myself in a place where it was like, okay, I got to pay my bills. And instead of asking for help, I demanded, better performing associates.
Yeah.
And it if you've ever heard people say you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink,
Mm-hmm.
it literally felt like I was like pulling everybody. And then something just shifted. I was just like, I am really sorry, everyone. I know I've been really difficult to be around.
Mm-hmm.
And they understood, like they genuinely cared
Yeah.
about my situation. And I reciprocated that, and then it became about, something within me was like, it starts with the team and it starts with training.
Mm-hmm.
And it made me realize like my team is underperforming because they're just not trained properly, And so we went back to the beginning, all the basics of basic training, like the military, And we were like, hey, look, what are the things you guys are struggling with? And they were like, oh, I don't know how to do this, or I'm not quite so comfortable with that. And I trained one person, and then I had them retrain everybody, because that's how you learn, right?
Yeah.
You learn by doing or teaching, doing, and then showing somebody else for it to really, really stick. And that has completely changed the way that I approach any of those opportunities. We call them opportunities and not challenges usually.
Yeah, no, that's a good outlook. And I want to talk about how you train people in a second, but back to what you're saying about not like balancing that line of we need to grow. How did you have any ways of like keeping yourself accountable to working on the team, or was it a lot of it just inward? It kind of clicked in you, and then you were just full steam ahead?
I mean, it kind of clicked with me. It clicked with me, and then it clicked with them. And when I saw it click with my staff, and I saw them feel more confident,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, damn, this is going to work,
Gotcha. Okay.
And so, there's nothing worse. I don't know if you've ever had a job where like you were just kind of like thrown to the wolves and you just didn't think that you were good at what you were doing.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the problem. We offer so many services in my industry that it's never ending training. So it was like everybody was taught like the basics of everything, and then you learn as you go. And now we're just always in a constant learning stream. If somebody
Yeah.
sees something that they've never seen before, they teach everybody how to do it.
Okay.
and then those people teach the next set of employees that we end up hiring. So
Okay. So you really do have the employees, with team members, employees teaching the new
yes.
ones that come in.
Yeah.
Okay. And then what's kind of like your vetting process for hiring? How do you identify a qualified employee?
Oh man. I was just talking with my aunt over the weekend that, my old vetting process, I wouldn't have hired myself. Right?
Wow. That's honest.
Yeah, I just, I'm always evolving that. And because we've spread to the Pittsburgh region, it's a completely different process. When it comes to interviewing. I mean, we've done remote interviews and Zoom interviews, and it's just a whole different way of thinking out there than what we get to do down here in tiny Erie, But I really do try to give virtually everybody the opportunity to work for me, at least, to have a conversation about whether they're a good fit. And typically it's people that are already in retail.
Okay.
That I tend to look at. All of my experience prior to working at UPS stores was in fast food.
Oh, really?
Yeah, right? Because I was going to school and stuff. So it was like, take whatever quick job you can get. I think I tried serving a couple times, and that was not my extraordinary gift. But, very much I just look for that something in somebody that is like charismatic and comfortable, be able to sit here and have a good conversation, because that's really what they're going to be doing with my customers. And I usually have one of my team members in on the interview.
Oh, okay. But no, that's really cool how you bring an employee in, kind of get a feel, because they're also good indicators. Now, I've always thought of it, and I've heard other people talk about it, is you don't always hire based off the interview, because obviously if I'm trying to get a job, I'm going to present my best self. I'm going to be as happy. So I feel like part of it has to be, you have to be okay with firing and letting people go.
Oh, yeah.
Is that something that ever like bugs you, is like not having good like turnaround on employees because you might have to let one go? Or is that something that's not a non-issue for you?
Not really. Like, honestly, they say hire fast and fire faster. I truly believe that it's what's best for both parties. You would not enjoy working with me or my team if you didn't enjoy retail and you didn't enjoy our industry. So if I see that, you can't keep up, or you're just not interested enough to want to learn, it's just not going to be a good fit, because we never stop learning,
Yeah.
And also, we're a fast-paced environment, and there are some people who are just more comfortable working on one individual task without interruption, and it just wouldn't be a good fit. So typically we try to, we say, oh, well, see how it goes over the first 2 weeks, and we know within those first 2 weeks whether it's going to work or not.
You just, how has it been running? How long have you been in the Pittsburgh area?
Since May of 2018. So we just celebrated a year.
Wow. How is that, running something remote?
At first it was really painful because it wasn't remote. So I was commuting to Pittsburgh every day.
Holy cow.
Yeah. Yeah. I my little Prius gets a lot of miles on her. But it was interesting because I had to be kind to myself, right?
Yeah.
It took me 4 years to build Erie to where I was comfortable not being there every day.
Yeah.
Or my Erie location. So Pittsburgh, I purchased in May, and by December, my team was ready for me to not be there.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I took a 4-year process and I like squished it into like 6 months. But it was fast, and it was exhausting, and I definitely am gonna try to make that process a little smoother the next go around.
Gotcha. And what are kind of the plan? And is that store 2?
That's store 2. Yeah.
Okay. Now, what about store 3? Is that going to be Erie? Is that going to be another city?
I mean, you never know, because
Yeah.
the purchasing process can be lengthy. You know what I mean? There's definitely, I like purchasing existing locations and kind of, overhauling them.
Yeah.
Kind of putting my own spin on it. putting my really, really great team members in there and giving our customers the experience that they've been wanting. But Pittsburgh has more opportunity because there's more existing locations there.
Yeah,
you know?
I see. And now you also talked about growing like a business franchise where you buy businesses and kind of like run them through the system of management and leadership that you're running. What are some other industries you'd like to tap into?
Oh man. I mean, I realized after the second store that I could probably replicate what I'm doing for other people.
Okay.
So I would say, one of my preferred business ventures would be to just help other franchisees create the culture within their environment that would inspire growth and opportunity. I think that would probably be the number one thing that on a larger scale, that I would love to do as an individual. I'm currently working on a project with my husband right now, who's in the health and fitness industry. And he's kind of kicking my butt into getting into like a healthier lifestyle. We're both really, really busy people. And I would say, after caring for my dad, caring for my business, caring for my kids, you stop caring for yourself, right? And so we kind of started this company called Evolution Health, and it's still in its little infant baby stages, but it's a really amazing opportunity to help people kind of practically implement a healthier style of living without feeling like you're suffering and torturing yourself and counting points and starving.
That was always my biggest issue, is because like just with all the stuff I'm doing, it's like I don't have time to count my macros and like every time log what I eat and then like read the nutritional facts. I'm like, no. And that usually is the roadblock for me.
Yeah.
It just kind of cuts me off at the knees.
Yeah, it's why I've never, I can't do diets. I can't do any of that. And my husband's mantra is like, people don't count calories, they don't count macros, they don't count points.
Yeah.
People eat food,
Yeah.
So to tell them that they're eating, 80 grams of protein a day is not how real people eat. Some people, like bodybuilders, love counting stuff like that, I guess. But I'm not ever going to be a bodybuilder, nor do I want to think of my food as numerics.
Exactly.
So that's kind of a fun adventure for me, and I've proclaimed myself as the worst client ever. So if he can overhaul me with his plan, he can overhaul anyone.
There you go. It seems like that's the theme here, is you just like overhauling things, businesses, people. It just doesn't stop.
No, there's no end to it. I love inspiring people to do great things with their lives, and so I was forcing my employees to take that venture with me for a long time, and I'll continue doing that because my staff enjoys it, and I enjoy learning from them, but I truly think that like any business can take my practices and implement them and really care about their culture and employ real human beings.
Yeah, and it seems a lot of the keys to leadership, like you're saying, is just to care.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, they care, but about the wrong things, whether it's growth, whatever kind of like what the bottom line is.
Yeah, you think that you have to be like this selfish, miser who, cuts people's pay to make more money, and that's not at all, not to me at least. I'm sure some people get really successful and probably make a lot more money than me doing that stuff, but that's not my purpose. That's not what I'm trying to fulfill.
Yeah.
So,
and it makes you wonder, maybe they're getting that far because of just their own sheer talent in pushing people. But I feel like if that is your way of motivating and you're dragging people along, I feel like you could be doing so much better if you weren't.
Yeah, and even if I think that we have a skewed image of how we're measuring success, right? You can see there's tons of companies out there, or people who own businesses who look and appear successful and very profitable, but are they happy? And that's kind of been my measurement of success. I strive for progress, not perfection, when it comes to what I'm doing. And I measure success based on how fulfilled and happy I am. And right now I'm pretty stinking happy, like I'm stressed sometimes and I'm busy all the time, but I'm really happy and I'm very proud of what I'm building.
Now, with all this stuff you're building, do you see yourself having more free time for things you want to do, or do you think it gets harder the more you grow?
Um, yeah, that's the hidden question, right? I I think that because of my technique, right? My goal is to train, empower, and then evaluate my staff,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so when it comes to that, I'm spending more time doing minor micro evaluations and then re-inspiring them to grow however they need to grow to be a better team member, um, and less time working in the business, you know. And as the business becomes more profitable, I kind of tend to take that money and reinvest it in the business.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, hire a better accountant so I'm not doing bookkeeping, and you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So it is freeing up my space. I certainly wouldn't be on another business venture with my husband if I didn't have the time,
exactly.
because it would be physically impossible. But that's also why I'm like on this journey of kind of overhauling my health. Like I saw my dad get super sick and he passed May of 2018, right before I purchased my
Wow.
second location. And then seeing my grandmother get sick, and almost like it's like a predictor of what my future will be
Oh yeah.
if I don't kind of get my own stuff together. And more importantly, I am limited on time, right? And so when you're super tired and you're not taking care of yourself and you're eating, you know, all day carbs and sugar and you're crashing at 3 o'clock, you can't accomplish the stuff that you need to do. And
Exactly.
I got a ton of crap I need to get done. So I can't make more time, but I can make myself more efficient by kind of nourishing my body differently.
And what you were saying there about you were saying your father passed right before you bought the other, or right after you bought the other business.
Hmm.
Do you, if you don't mind, could you talk about what that was like trying to run a business going through such a hard time?
Oh my gosh. Woo, we're
Like,
going
yeah, how do you
deep.
balance that?
You know, because my second purchase was in Pittsburgh, I had a
Mm,
lot of time on my hands driving
okay.
back and forth. I mean, it's a 2 hour commute from Erie to Pittsburgh. And I had kids to get on the school bus. So I would drive down at 9 a.m. and then I would drive home at 8 p.m. And so I feel very blessed. My dad was a musician
Oh wow,
and I have his music, you know, and so his music was on repeat while I drove,
that's so cool.
and that kind of helped me through that whole process. But you know, I'm that kind of person who just made herself as busy as possible,
Mm,
and I don't know if that's there's probably tons of therapists that'll be listening that's like, oh, that's not the right thing to do, Rachel. But you know, I also had a lot of people that were very supportive.
yeah.
I love that I had that 4 year period where we were helping my dad get better, because he lived in Arizona before that. So
Okay,
had he not gotten sick, we wouldn't have had the strong relationship that we had prior to him passing.
gotcha.
So I'm super grateful for all of those things, and I know he was like really really proud of what I was doing and
Oh,
what I
of
was
course.
building. So you know, all of that was extremely difficult. More importantly, like it served a purpose, right?
Mm-hmm.
He definitely helped me realize what I need to do and how I need to like take better care of myself, to kind of help curve that outcome of what end of life looks like for myself.
Yeah.
He was cured from cancer, but he had COPD. So, you know, COPD is a awful, awful, awful illness to die from
Yeah.
and to watch somebody die from. So, my kids, I don't think will ever, ever pick up a cigarette or smoke or anything like that
Yeah.
because they know the outcome. So,
What can happen?
it was a very difficult period in my life, but looking back, I think that I had the right people in my corner to support me, and my
Yeah.
team completely
Oh yeah.
understood, you
And
know.
having built that, I think is because where you would be if your team, what's the word I'm looking for? Not despise, but like, yeah, kind of like didn't like you because of your leadership style, and
Hmm.
then you went through something hard. They're
Yeah.
not going to care about you.
Yeah, no. And that, like, I mean, don't get me wrong, the some of the team members on the new location that I had purchased,
Yeah.
they didn't know me.
Exactly.
They didn't understand, and they didn't like my leadership ability. They liked kind of just doing things on their own, and they were a great team for someone else, but definitely not for the direction I was trying to head with the business.
Gotcha.
So it doesn't always work out. It's not rainbows and butterflies and perfection when it comes to owning a business.
For sure.
It gets ugly, and sometimes you cry
A lot.
a lot. But I think that if we think of ourselves in leadership and not in entrepreneurship, especially if you're not a solopreneur and you actually employ people, it's a completely different outlook on life.
Yeah, and the reason why I wanted to talk about that is because the last podcast I just recorded, we were talking about mental health and wellness as entrepreneurs, because a lot of entrepreneurs are like more susceptible to depression, thoughts of suicide, and all these things because of the stress that they're under, and the certain kind of like personality traits it takes to be an entrepreneur are also very correlated with mental unrest and your well-being. And it's just interesting to hear different people and how they get through these things, because it seems like you've made it like you've come better from those hard situations where a lot of people can shut down and really become inward focused and like let it destroy them from the inside. But it seems like it's really helped you. So having a way to talk to people like, hey, because obviously people are running businesses and people are passing away, unfortunately, and like, how do you deal with that in a healthy way? And it seems like you have.
I mean,
having that support group.
I think that everybody has their way to to mourn or to go through challenges or struggles or whatnot. I certainly have had a difficult life and a difficult past, so and during my hardest moments with my parents, where I was like, I disagreed with you guys did raising me, I really found myself at a point in my 20s, thanking them for my resilience, right? So anybody that could be listening that is like struggling with their past or struggling with things that they're going through right now, I am a firm believer that everything that we go through is to just prepare us for something greater, right? And so when you're going through those challenges or those struggles and you're really contemplating like, oh my God, why am I doing this? Is this worth it? Is there a way out? I truly believe that on the other side of that, hump or dark tunnel, whatever we want to call it, there is something that you're going to succeed at that you would not have been prepared for had you not gone through that challenge before. And that could be a huge array of optimism coming out of me, but anything that I've ever been through, I can look back and say, okay, that was for a purpose, and I wouldn't have been able to do this specific thing without serving that. So
and that's an extremely healthy outlook on what you need to have, because I feel like being an entrepreneur and being a pessimist is not a fun road that people should go down.
No, I don't know if you, I mean, maybe you could be a successful, pessimistic entrepreneur. I think you'd more than likely have to be a solopreneur to be a pessimist. Sure. You know what I mean? Because you may tolerate yourself, but other people probably won't.
That would be hard. And like you said, being an entrepreneur can look good on the outside when you hear about the growth and the new businesses and all this stuff, but there's a lot of dark sides and hardships and struggles and perseverance that you need to have. But having the outlook of like, even going through those times, it's okay and it's going to be okay, and there's a reason, like you said, there's a purpose for it. I think it's huge for having the right mindset to become an entrepreneur.
Definitely. And when all else fails, like my kids check me. Like my kids right now are 9 and 11, and I remember the first couple years of owning a business, they were like, "Can we watch a movie without your computer, Mom?" And I was like, "What?" But we would do like family movie night, and I would have my laptop and I'd be working and designing stuff for clients, and it was like, "Oh, wait, yeah, you're right. Like this isn't necessarily time with me." So when in doubt, my kids will always kind of keep me in check, and I do all of this for them. So let's not lose sight of that.
It seems like having kids in your corner is a big plus in running a business. They're able to evaluate which ones are more like family when you need to get off your computer. So if you have a child, make sure they're involved.
Right.
But no, I mean, I think we covered a lot of really good stuff. I was going to ask you a question about, like, if you were talking to entrepreneurs, what would you say to entrepreneurs in Erie, Pennsylvania who are either looking to start a business or running a business if you had the opportunity to just speak to all of them?
Oh
What would you
man,
tell them?
what would I tell them? I would probably tell them to make sure that it's the right decision for their team.
Mm-hmm.
I start with my team as my family,
Yeah.
and it's not always the right time or the right decision. Make sure you have the supportive network or the people that are in your corner to be there for you. Don't ever feel too proud to ask for help.
Yeah.
I think that that's a travesty in the entrepreneur industry, is that you feel like you have to be this overnight success that did it by themselves, because that's the story that we hear. And I don't think that there's anybody out there who didn't have somebody helping,
Exactly.
that turned out to be a huge success story. And know how to measure what success is to you.
Mm-hmm.
I promise, if it's a dollar amount for you, it will go up the minute you hit that level. So just know, like, that's why I say progress, not perfection. There is no end game number for me. I just want to continue progressing, and I want to continue being happy and being a good example for people that are looking towards me.
Yeah.
So I think that those are all extremely important things. And if it's not for you and you start a business and it's failing and you can't make it profitable, get out.
Yeah. Be okay with.
There is, honestly, I would say it would be more shameful owning a business that's not successful and continuing to try to kill yourself to get there, than it would to just say, you know what, enough is enough, and know when to walk away.
Yeah, and that goes back to the whole self-awareness thing. Like,
Yeah.
maybe you're not that type of person. Maybe you're the number 2 at a very big company instead of number 1 at your own company.
Yeah.
And being able to realize that is huge.
Yeah, I think that we get caught up in this mix of thinking that, to be successful, we have to be number 1 in a company, or we have to own our own business, or, we have to, I don't know, have this measurement. And that's not, to me, that's not what success is. If you are number 1 in a company and you're alone and you're miserable and you're unhappy, I don't think that that's success.
No. Yeah, even if you are making money.
Yeah. So I think that we have to kind of alter our mindsets a little bit. And honestly, like, if you're a part of a business and people are supporting you, like, don't ever forget to kind of give back to them, support those who support you.
Exactly.
Specifically, if you're employing people, you better be good to your team. Like 100%.
For sure. No, I mean, that's all really good stuff. And this podcast, I'm going to see if there's any other questions I really wanted to hit before we ended. But no, that was great. Have you been watching The Undercover Billionaire?
No, I don't have cable.
You don't?
I haven't had cable in 11 years. I've heard it's really good, though.
Okay. Yeah, because I was going to ask about that, too, just out of curiosity, because I know a lot of people have some mixed feelings about that.
Yeah, I can't. I'm
excited for it.
Yeah, I can't have any feelings about it. I think, because I haven't seen it, and I probably won't see it unless it gets released on Netflix. So, but I do think that it's a cool thing to have something so big that has the potential of being extremely popular happening here in Erie. You know what I mean?
Bringing awareness to Erie, Pennsylvania.
Yeah. I think it's neat. I still want to keep Erie kind of how Erie is, though. Yeah. I don't want it to become a big, like, crazy tourist place where people are flooding it, starting businesses. I mean, that'd be great for the economy. No,
but that is interesting, because, like, a lot of people that I talk to, they're like, how to make Erie bigger, how to grow Erie, how to make it a top tier city.
Yeah.
But then you lose a lot of that really homey, like you're saying, like, having that network of entrepreneurs that actually want to see you succeed.
Yeah.
You almost seem to lose that with a bigger environment.
Yeah, I like, how I was saying, like, the practices that I have, I think, could be implemented into any business. And I think a city is a business. And I think that, we need to know what the outlook of this community is, as a healthy, prosperous community.
Yeah.
And once we can figure that out, then consider growth and expansion. But you can grow the wrong way,
exactly.
Right? You can grow and be a big company that, I could be a multi-million-dollar business that makes no profit, you know?
Yeah, that's true. Very real.
And so, I think that we need to know what success would look like for this community.
Now, do you have any ideas of what you would like to see Erie be?
Ooh, I think I would like to see Erie unified.
Okay.
I think if we could start there, and kind of combat some of the stereotypes that are happening. It's kind of why I'm agreeing to do these podcasts and interviews and try to put myself out there more, because I think that there is a mindset in Erie that entrepreneurship and success and stuff looks one way.
Okay.
And if I can just start with combating that, I feel like I'm contributing to a different Erie.
Yeah.
I think success in Erie would be to see it more unified and to see people think outside of what their norm is, and to get some people into leadership in our community that is forward thinking and understanding of the rest of the world outside of Erie.
Yeah. I mean, maybe that's you. That's your special gift, leadership. Who knows?
You never know.
You never know. But no, that's really good. I think this was a very well done podcast with a lot of good tips and stuff for business and leadership and all that great stuff. So I thank you for coming and sharing all the stuff that you know.
Oh, I thank you for having awesome questions.
Well, thank you. Thank you. You've been an amazing guest, and goodbye to everybody watching.
Adios.
Have you guys ever had those conversations with people where at the end of it you just feel refreshed because they understand what you are trying to talk to people about? You just seem like you're on the same page. Well, that's exactly how I felt after this interview with Rachel. Oh my gosh, it was fantastic. If you need to get in touch with her for any UPS purposes, printing, talking about business, she loves just reaching out to entrepreneurs. So if that's you, let me give you some of her contact information. I'm going to read this off because I don't want to mess any of this up. You can email her at owner4886@theupsstore.com, or you can just find her on Instagram under Rachel Artise. Last name is spelled Artise. I wasn't going to try and memorize that, so I'm reading it off my phone. Thank you guys so much for listening to this. I hope that you took away some valuable information on management and leadership. She was an amazing person to talk to on that. And if you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a comment, rating, whatever. Share this with your friends, or just email us at eriespodcast@gmail.com and let us know what you thought, or if you'd like to be on the next episode. Thank you again for Cam for the amazing studio to record this podcast in. And if you're looking to start a podcast, definitely look up Cam Erie, Community Access Media. Thank you again for watching, and have a wonderful, splendid, fantastic rest of your day.